The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Finding light in the darkness is a very American thing to do.
Tonight on Politics Now, history made. The enormous American Rescue Plan is now law. What does that mean for you and your family and your bank account? Gun control, the measures passed on one side of Congress and their future moving forward as Democrats push changes to background checks. Plus, restaurant relief, the move starting Monday that local eateries are looking forward to, and a move in Carson City chefs are now fighting against.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Thanks for joining us here for Politics Now. I'm David Charnes. This week marked a year of living with the coronavirus pandemic. President Biden announcing Thursday he is now directing all states, tribes, and territories to make all American adults eligible for the COVID vaccine by May 1st. The president said his goal is to put the nation on a path to getting closer to normal by July 4th.
There's a good chance you, your families, and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout and a barbecue and celebrate Independence Day.
The president also celebrating his first big legislative victory, signing into law that $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which passed Congress along party lines. So we're talking a lot of money in that plan. Take a look. We've broken it down for you just to show you how big it is. More than $400 billion in total for those direct checks of $1,400 for most Americans. Those are for people making $75,000 or less. A combined $70 billion for COVID relief and tracing. $350 billion to local governments to pay for essential services like our police. And Nevada gets $4 billion of that, with about $500 million going to Clark County and the city of Las Vegas, and nearly $1 billion going over to CCSD. Now let's turn to vaccines. President Biden is more than 3/4 of the way to setting his goal, meeting that goal of seeing 100 million COVID-19 shots in the first 100 days of office. Natalie Brand looks back at how the federal government responded this year and the fight ahead.
The race to recovery has turned to vaccinations.
We're now on track to have enough vaccine supply for every adult in America by the end of May.
So far, more than 90 million shots have reached more than 17% of the U.S. population. From vaccines to testing to reopening plans, President Biden is pushing a national response strategy in contrast to the Trump administration's state-driven approach.
A lot of control happens at the state and local level, and that's appropriate because it allows jurisdictions to tailor what's happening, the policies to their communities. The challenge is that when every single state is having to make the same set of decisions, it makes sense to take that up a level and provide federal guidance and leadership.
Dr. Caitlin Rivers, an epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins, helped work on reopening guidance last spring and says a key lesson learned is the critical importance of clear public health messaging.
And we just never got that really crisp, continuous messaging that could help people to navigate this really difficult year.
While President Trump received criticism for mixed messaging as well as downplaying the threat of the virus, his administration earned praise for helping fast-track the development of COVID-19 vaccines.
It's called Operation Warp Speed. That means big and it means fast.
The FDA has given emergency use authorization to vaccines from Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. While the rollout has been rocky, FEMA has now helped launch mass vaccination sites with an emphasis on reaching vulnerable populations and underserved communities.
The public health crisis also triggered an economic crisis, decimating businesses and leaving millions out of work, demanding its own federal response.
Last March, President Trump signed the $2.2 trillion CARES Act, the largest of 5 emergency bills Congress passed in 2020. It included stimulus checks, expanded unemployment benefits, and the Paycheck Protection Program to help struggling businesses. Congress is now poised to send President Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief plan to his desk. President Biden paused with the nation last month to mark more than 500,000 lives lost to the virus, with Americans still anxious about a key question.
What does the new normal look like?
I think masks will continue to be a staple in households. I think that we will all be a little bit more mindful to keep our distance from others, but we will be able to reincorporate a lot of things that are important to us.
Health experts also stress the importance of laying the groundwork now for the best response to future crises. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
And the Biden administration announcing plans to invest $250 million in an effort to encourage COVID-19 safety and vaccination among underserved populations. In other news this week, Merrick Garland is our country's newest attorney general. The Senate confirming the former chief judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for D.C. in a 30-70 vote. Speaking to colleagues on his first day Thursday, Garland promised to keep the Justice Department independent and free of political influence. He called his arrival a homecoming.
Together, we will show the American people by word and deed that the Department of Justice pursues equal justice and adheres to the rule of law. Thank you.
Garland reflecting back on the first time he walked in for a job interview at just 26, and then the years of service that followed. Former President Barack Obama nominated Garland to the Supreme Court in 2016, a position which Republicans blocked. Well, the political spotlight is returning here to Las Vegas. Vice President Kamala Harris will be in town Monday along with her husband, the second gentleman, Douglas Emhoff. We don't have specific details on the trip yet, but we'll update you as soon as we learn more. We recognize International Women's Day this past Monday, and here in Nevada, women make up the majority of the legislature. One newly elected member is Democratic Assemblywoman Elaine Marzola. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy talked with her.
All the young women out there, I think it's really important to know that nothing, should stop you. Keep moving forward. I think the women before us, opened the doors for us. We are opening doors for the young women behind us. Just, don't give up. Hard work and perseverance. Whether you're married, not married, whether you're young, older, it doesn't matter. Just know that nothing should stop you. And so, hopefully I can, myself and all the women here in the legislature, have had and will have a positive impact for women to come.
What do you think has been the biggest challenge so far?
As far as being here or my life, which part?
As far as maybe the path to where you are now.
Just, doors don't open quite as easily for women. We have to prove ourselves 2, 3, 4 times harder, maybe than a man would, right? So that's tough. For me, you add that I'm an immigrant. I didn't know the language, right? So all those things add up and, it makes the road a little harder. And then being a single mom, it made it even harder. But, us women, we're tough and we keep moving forward. And that's what we do. I think it's just in us not to give up.
Assemblywoman Marzola speaks of camaraderie among Nevada's women legislators and a mutual trust even between Democrats and Republicans. Well, the Nevada State Democratic Party has some brand new leadership. Progressives affiliated with the local chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America are now in the top spots. And as a result, staffers resigned this week. It's a story that's been in the national spotlight all week. The State Democratic Party is one of the strongest in the country. One reason, former Senator Harry Reid. But there has been longtime tension with supporters of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who are now declaring victory. Clark County Commissioner Tick Segerblum ran for the party chair, but did lose to Judith Whitmer. Vanessa Murphy spoke with the commissioner.
One side was in control for a long time. There's another side that felt they've been treated unfairly. That other side is now in control. So I'm hoping that they will reach back out and we can bridge this gap finally. There's no point in having two different sides in the Democratic Party. We're united. We have a Democratic president, Democratic governor, Democratic senator. So our goals should all be to focus on those and not fight internally. But it is what it is. I tried to bridge that gap, and obviously I was not successful, but you can't give up.
Now, we did reach out to the party for an interview with Judith Whitmer and did not receive a response in time for the deadline. Well, it's been a year since Governor Sisolak declared a state of emergency. Right now, Republicans in Carson City are looking to clarify the law that gives the man or woman who holds that position that power. Assembly Bill 93 would require legislative approval if a state of emergency were to last more than 15 days. One of the bill's sponsors says this is a nonpartisan issue and is nothing in response to anything Governor Sisolak has done.
We actually placed the governor in this predicament, if you think about it, because by the law that we have, it's his job to jump in there and put out emergency directives. Well, so we saw a problem, let's fix it.
It's unlikely, though, the bill moves forward since Democrats have control of the legislature. We're learning more about a proposal to remove racist school mascots and place names across Nevada. Assembly Bill 88 would require districts change mascots that use names and logos associated with discriminatory imagery. The Western High School Warriors, for instance, would have to work with school officials to change their name. Democrat Howard Watts of Las Vegas says this also applies to 60 place names like lakes and mountains.
Where we can get public feedback on these things, where we can learn about the history, about why some people see them as insensitive, and come up with hopefully some better options for some of these things that are really hurtful.
The assemblyman, who is a UNLV grad himself, says he wanted to see the school retire the Hey Reb mascot, which the school did do in January. He says UNLV plans to keep the Rebels name. A proposal in the legislature to prohibit insurers from discriminating based on the breed of your dog is moving forward. SB 103 passing at a committee on Monday. Supporters say some pet owners have to choose between their dog and their home, especially if insurers' fees add up. Opponents say certain breeds are more dangerous. It is already illegal in Nevada for cities to implement certain policies based on breed. Coming up, the pandemic not kind to our local restaurants, the issues they're facing, and the increase in capacity happening next week.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
30% of restaurants here in Nevada have closed during the coronavirus pandemic. The ones that are open are capped at 1/3 capacity, but that goes up to 50% Monday. And then in May, it's up to local leaders to decide if they want to go further than that. John Langler talked to a representative from the Nevada Restaurant Association about how they're moving forward.
What effort was made by individual restaurants, by the association, by some of the restaurant owners involved with the board and so forth, to not only, to try and convince the governor, to convince Southern Nevada Health District, for example, state health officials to be less strict with regards to capacity, still acknowledging the health issues, obviously, but how much of a push has there been up till now to say, we need help, you've got to give us something here?
Sure, it's been a constant struggle every single day. We've been advocating for policy solutions to allow restaurants to safely serve guests, because that's the number one thing for us. It's not just a matter of being open. It's a matter of making people, feel and actually be safe, making sure we're taking those safety precautions, sanitation practices, in addition to what we already do. It's just another level of cleanliness and this, procedure that we've been advocating. So that's kind of what we've come to the governor as well as local policy officials, and kind of relaying, the needs of the restaurant industry and saying, look, we've been severely impacted here. It's something that we need help with.
So you're in Carson City right now. The legislative session is underway. What are some measures, what are some laws that are being debated right now, some bills, whether they're dealing directly with the pandemic or just broadly the industry itself, that have your attention?
Sure. Already this session, we've engaged on AB 106, and that, like I'd mentioned before, distributes federal relief money to state grants, and that would be distributed to our small businesses like our restaurants. So our association has been working with the Nevada Treasurer's Office to publicize these grants, as well as kind of, again, relay the needs of the restaurant industry, what our operators really need at this time. So we've kind of been, working hand in hand with the Treasurer's Office to make sure that those grants are distributed properly. In addition, we're seeing the issue of eliminating natural gas, and that's reaching the State House now. So now there's an effort to remove natural gas from commercial and residential buildings. And essentially that would affect restaurants because that would limit their ability to use natural gas, and they would have to essentially use electric stoves. So that's something that really affects way, the method in which a lot of our cooks and our chefs, what they do on a daily basis. So that's something that is really, really a big issue for us, as well as retrofitting current natural gas equipment to electric, which is, again, extremely costly. And it's really not a time to increase other operational costs for our operators. It's yet another thing that they have to kind of potentially jump through. And so that's something that we've been really vocal about up here at Carson City, and trying to kind of make sure that the representation is there for restaurants. You
mentioned a few moments ago that, the 70% of the restaurants that are still around, no one's really happy. Is there, you say, and also there's a light at the end of the tunnel. What does the association and its members envision for sort of the next 6 months in Nevada restaurants in terms of capacity, funding, survival, safety, et cetera? If there's a crystal ball here, what are the hopes of the association members of how this is going to all play out?
Sure. So if we're looking at the COVID plan, we're looking at March 15th, which is this coming Monday, as an important day for our restaurant operators, because then they'll be able to operate at 50% capacity indoor, which they haven't had for quite some time, I should say. Recently, they've been limited to 35%, and then before that it was 25%, and then it was just takeout and curbside. So like I'd mentioned before, more capacity is more of an ability for them to make more money. That's something that's really important to our operators. So we're anticipating that. We're looking forward to 50%. We're, of course, looking forward to 100% and getting there in a safe manner. We want to, of course, make sure that we're maintaining, and people feel safe and comfortable when they come into a restaurant. It's definitely a balance. So, I think predicting anything in this pandemic or this last year shows us that we can't necessarily make, plans, but we hope to, soon be at 100% capacity.
Very important to our economy here. Well, there is lots more to come here on Politics Now. Up next, the push for gun control. The new measures in Washington that one local rep is pushing, coming up next.
You're watching Politics Now.
House Democrats say the 2 gun control bills they passed this week will make our country safer.
In Nevada, we certainly know about gun violence. We had the highest number of people killed in an incident in modern history.
Nevada Democratic Congresswoman Dina Titus talking to us earlier this week. The bills face an unclear future in the Senate, though. Our Washington correspondent Alexandra Limon has those details.
Democrats are pushing for passage of 2 bills to strengthen background checks for gun sales.
If you are a felon, if you are a criminal, if you are deranged, well, by God, you shouldn't have access to a weapon. That's what this bill does. It has the support of about 90% of Americans.
Illinois Congresswoman Sherry Bustos says one bill would close the so-called gun show loophole by making it illegal for unlicensed persons to transfer firearms to someone else without a background check.
Listen, I'm a father of a 5-year-old who's in school. I care deeply about gun violence.
Republican Congressman Richard Hudson says these bills are not the solution.
These bills, again, would have not stopped a single mass shooting.
But Democrats say the second bill, which would extend the background check period from 3 to 10 days, would give authorities more time to flag people like the Charleston church shooter. Nevada Congresswoman Dina Titus says the bills still respect the gun rights of Americans.
But that doesn't mean that people who shouldn't have guns can go out and use them in our streets as weapons of war.
Republican Senator Marco Rubio says he doubts the bills will improve gun violence.
The people that aren't going to follow the law are criminals. The people that are buying guns in a back alley.
If they pass in the House, the bills would still need to gain support from every Democrat and 10 Republicans to pass in the U.S. Senate. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
And more to come here on Politics Now. Up next, why a Las Vegas judge is taking the state commission to court.
You're watching Politics Now.
A Las Vegas judge has filed a complaint in federal court accusing a state commission of trying to muzzle her free speech and ruin her reputation. Justice of the Peace Melanie Tobiasen has been under investigation by Nevada's Judicial Discipline Commission for almost 2 years. That investigation was instigated after the judge gave an interview to the I-Team, where she accused law enforcement agencies of ignoring a local sex trafficking ring. Now, that ring allegedly recruited teenage girls, including the judge's daughter. An investigator for the commission found the judge had done nothing wrong. The JDC then hired a second investigator and later filed multiple allegations that could result in Tobiason's removal.
The criticisms they've gone after and completely fabricated. And in fact, if you take a look at the complaint in this action, they've completely made things up. It's contrived, it's vindictive. They've written their documents as though they're press releases in an effort to avoid the fact that they're not supposed to talk about these things through the stages that they've instead released these statements that are essentially press releases. And by the way, false ones to try and suppress her and punish her for speaking.
Attorney Mark Cook filing a blistering complaint in federal court alleging the state commission violated Judge Tobiason's constitutional rights. Cook says the 2-year investigation has eaten up nearly all of its annual budget for investigations. Well, here's a look at what we're watching this week. As we told you earlier, Vice President Kamala Harris coming to Las Vegas Monday to tout the American Rescue Plan. Now, we don't have any details about the trip just yet, but of course, we'll keep you posted all week long, all weekend long on 8 News Now as we learn more. And we thank you for watching Politics Now. I'm David Charnes. You can stay up to date online inside our free app and, of course, watch us every Saturday. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.